In the past 24 hours, Ukrainian forces struck 4 command points, 3 air defense and 9 artillery systems in firing positions. Source: General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook. Information is of 1800 on the 24th of July. Details: The Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine carried out 8 strikes on the clusters of Russian personnel, weapons and military equipment and 4 on Russian air defense systems. During the day, Ukraine's air defense also destroyed 3 assault UAVs of the Shahed 136 type. At the same time, units of rocket forces and artillery hit 4 command points, 3 air defense systems, 9 artillery systems in firing positions and 4 electronic warfare stations of the Russian forces. During the day, the Russian troops carried out 1 missile and 58 air strikes, as well as over 26 attacks from multiple launch missile systems on the positions of Ukrainian troops and settlements. Unfortunately, there are dead and wounded among children and civilians. The port infrastructure and grain storage points in the south of Ukraine, residential buildings and other infrastructure were destroyed and damaged. During the day, 23 combat clashes were recorded. On the Volyn and Polishcha fronts, the operational situation has not changed significantly. There were no signs of forming any offensive groups. On the Severshina and Slobozhanshina fronts, the Russians maintain a military presence. They inflicted air strikes in the areas of the settlements of Hariv Kazakok and Pishain, Kharkiv Oblat. Over 15 settlements were bombarded from mortars and artillery, in particular, northeast of Leonivka in Chernihiv Oblast, east of Boyaro-Lezachiv, Uroidi, southeast of Popivka in Sumy Oblast, as well as Basov, Hariv Kazakok, Haraniv, Pishain, Kazaka Lopan, Hadish in Kharkiv Oblast. On the Kupiansk front, airstrikes were recorded near Terny, Vilshain, Kyslivka in Kharkiv Oblast. Krasny Persh, Fyholivka, Vorokna, Zapatna, Kupiansk, Odradna in Kharkiv Oblast were subjected to artillery and mortar attacks. On the Lyman front, the Russians launched airstrikes in the areas of Bilohorivka, Luhansk Oblast, as well as Lyman, Yampol, Seversk, Spern, Razdalivka in Donetsk Oblast. The settlements of Nevsky, Bilhorivka of Luhansk Oblast, as well as Torsky, Verkhnekamiansk, Spern, Razdalivka of Donetsk Oblast were subjected to artillery shelling. On the Bakhmut front, Ukrainian defenders successfully repelled Russian attacks in areas northwest of Orikovo-Vasilivka, south of Ivanov and west of Klashivka, Donetsk Oblast. The Russians inflicted air strikes in the areas of Delivka and Predtekheim, Donetsk Oblast. More than 10 settlements were affected by artillery shelling, including Vashukivka, Orikovo-Vasilivka, Markov, Bodanivka, Ivanovsky, Chasev Yar in Donetsk Oblast. On the Avdiivka front, while under heavy fire of Russian aircraft and artillery, Ukrainian forces successfully repelled the attacks of Russian troops in the vicinity of Pervomaisk of Donetsk Oblast. The Russians launched air strikes near Novokulinov, Avdiivka, Nevelsky in Donetsk Oblast. At the same time, they carried out artillery shelling of more than 10 settlements, in particular Avdiivka, Lastochkin, Vodian, Pervomaisk and Karlivka in Donetsk Oblast. On the Marinka front, the Ukrainian forces continue to restrain the offensive of Russian troops in the areas of Krasnohorivka and Marinka, Donetsk Oblast. The Russians fired at more than 10 settlements, including Krasnohorivka, Marinka, Hobida, Hiorhivka, Maximilianivka, Donetsk Oblast. On the Shakhtarsk front, the Russians conducted unsuccessful offensive operations in the area of Rivnopil, Donetsk Oblast. They carried out shelling of more than 10 settlements, in particular, Paraskoviivka, Novomikhailivka, Vuhledar, Blahodatna in Donetsk Oblast. On the Zaporizhia and Kherson fronts, the Russians focused their main efforts on preventing further advancement of Ukrainian troops. They inflicted airstrikes in the areas of Malotokhmachka, Orikhiv, Lobkov in Zaporizhia Oblast. Over 30 settlements were shelled, including Huliaipol, Novoandriivka, Mali Sherbeki, Stepnorisk in Zaporizhia Oblast, as well as Zolota Balka, Mikhailivka, Kachkarivka, Kozatsky in Kherson Oblast and the city of Kherson. At the same time, the defense forces of Ukraine continue to conduct an offensive operation on the Melitopol and Berdyansk fronts, gaining a foothold on the reclaimed territories, inflicting fire damage with artillery on detected Russian targets, and carrying out counter-battery warfare measures. Russian forces continue to commit looting in the temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine. In particular, in the village of Myronovsky, Donetsk Oblast, the arrival of the Amhat Russian Guard unit was established from the 10th of July. They forcibly evict local civilians from their houses to the street and arbitrarily move into civilian houses. Also, the aforementioned representatives of the Russian occupation forces engage in looting en masse, which causes a wave of discontent among civilians. At the same time, the Russian invaders continue to use the civilian medical infrastructure of temporarily occupied settlements to provide medical assistance to their wounded servicemen. In the village of Radinsk, Kherson Oblast, Russian forces equip the territory of a local kindergarten to serve as a field hospital. Dozens of wounded invaders are being treated there. Ukrainian and Russian forces clashed 35 times over past day, General Staff report. Ukraine's defense forces clashed with Russian occupation forces more than 35 times over the course of the 24th of July. Source: General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook. Information is of 6 o'clock on the 24th of July. Quote: Last night the Russian Federation once again deployed Iranian-made Shahed attack drones to target Ukraine. Information about the aftermath of the attack has yet to be confirmed. Over the course of the past 24 hours, the enemy forces carried out one missile strike and 72 airstrikes and deployed multiple launch rocket systems to conduct more than 50 further attacks on the positions of our forces and civilian settlements. Unfortunately, there are civilian casualties and fatalities, including children. Port infrastructure and grain storage facilities in southern Ukraine, as well as residential buildings, were damaged. There is a high ongoing threat of missile and airstrikes across all of Ukraine. More than 35 clashes between Ukrainian and Russian forces took place over the course of the past day. Details: the situation remains unchanged on the Volyn and Polishcha fronts. On the Severshchina and Slobozhenshchina fronts, Russian forces conducted airstrikes in the vicinity of Hariv Kazakok and Pishain, Kharkiv Oblast. They deployed mortars and artillery to fire on more than 30 civilian settlements, including on areas to the northeast of Leonivka, Chernihiv Oblast, Saradina Buda, Boyaro Lezachi, Bilipilya, and the areas to the east of Uroidi and to the southeast of Popivka, Sumy Oblast, and Streleka, Overtsev, Bochkov, Nestern and Budarki, Kharkiv Oblast. On the Kupiansk front, Russian aircraft struck areas near Terny, Vilshana and Kyslivka, Kharkiv Oblast. Krasny Persh, Kamyanka, Fyholivka, Vorokna, Zapadna, Kupiansk, Odradna and Kyslivka, Kharkiv Oblast came under Russian mortar and artillery fire. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported on July 25 that Russia has lost 243,220 troops in Ukraine since February 24 last year. This number includes 600 casualties suffered by Russian forces over the past day.